Today is the EricSwannRacing.com podcast number 47 with John Knowles. And we're going to be talking about all things racing, riding, training, I'm sure, what's going on with him, catching up with him, a little bit about the business. I sell motorsports products online on EricSwannRacing.com and ShopESR.com. Also eBay and Amazon, but motorsports products, I sell exhausts, hard parts, a little bit of takeoff tires here and there. I have a lot of stuff online, a couple thousand parts for sale, trying to get to 10,000 items for sale, and try to do this full time. I'm still working a full-time job, and I do this on the side, but this is my goal to have a full-time business that I can work full-time and sustains me and my family, and then have enough to race full-time. So I got John coming on. Let's admit him here. So what's going on with you today?
I am at work. It is my Monday after being at the track all weekend. I'm just gonna hold it and try to stay still. AFM was this weekend, and it went good and bad.
And what are you racing out at AFM?
The SV650 that I'm planning on racing in Moto America.
Okay, awesome. And is that a new bike for you, or is that it's a bike that you've been on for years?
It's a bike that's new to me, and this is like the fourth time I've ridden it. Rode and every time it's been a completely different motorcycle. We've been changing things step by step to try to get it dialed in. And so the first time I rode it was last year at the last AFM round at Button Willow, and I did really well up until the point when I crashed and hurt myself. So that wasn't good. And then ridden it, done a little bit of testing 2 times between then and riding it this weekend. And this weekend I was just kind of starting to get going on it, and the engine blew up in a spectacular way.
Yeah. So a lot of mechanical issues?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And what are you struggling with the riding? Is there any specific aspect or corner or anything that you can point to?
Not so much, I would say, any specific aspect, although I do feel like I do feel like I've kind of plateaued, and I'm planning on seeking some coaching, like maybe with a guy like Hayes or Pridmore or somebody, to try to push past that. So I got to a point where, I've come a long way just riding with fast people and racing with fast people. I started in Moto America only my second year road racing. I got on a 390 bike in Moto America. So I've pretty much all that I've learned has just been through racing with fast people, and I've come a long way that way, just by monkey see, monkey do. But I think to get beyond where I'm at now, I'm gonna need some help.
Yeah, and that's normal. I mean, even the top guys have coaches. Like even Rossi has a coach.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's not bad. It just helps you pick apart things a little bit better. And it's always good to have a second set of eyes.
Yeah.
And watching on the track, you see like John Hopkins helping out Joe Roberts.
Yeah, or Jake Zemke with Cambobier. So I need a little bit of that in my life.
And mentors are, the fastest way to get to where you want to be. Sometimes it might be hard to find one, but if you can track one down, ask them some questions, and befriend them,
Yeah,
definitely helps.
Yeah, I got to actually a couple weeks ago. I got to ride out at the Feel Like a Pro Dirt Ranch with Eric Bostrom and his dad. So that was pretty cool. And his dad's almost 80, and I kid you not, he was the fastest guy there on a small flat track bike. It was,
he's got the most experience.
It was incredible. Yeah, exactly. He's like, I've been riding all this time. All I know how to do is ride fast and smooth.
And you know he's
Like,
good because he's still in it.
yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things he said was, the key to a good career is not having injuries, avoiding that. And I mean, that's luck of the draw a lot of the time. I've already screwed that one up though. I haven't avoided all the injuries.
So do you think it's really luck of the draw for injuries, or do you think it's a combination of like being flexible and crashing well? Because I thought for a long time that I was actually a good crasher in the fact that I didn't get injured. The only time I really went to the hospital for a bad crash was when I hit a stationary object. Every other time
Oh,
I just walked away and I
that's
was
not
like, well,
good.
that sucks, So
Yeah, it's a little of both, because like the things that make you a good crasher, and people who've been riding and racing their whole life tend to be good crashers, because those things that like you learning how to crash is something you learn when you're a little kid. I feel like it's not good to learn once you're an adult. um but there's also because I had the same thing where for all my life up to the 2017 race season, I had some wild crashes, but never a serious injury. Like I'd like fractured, like I think I'd fractured my foot once, but never broken a bone, I don't think. And that was a rough year. Like I hurt myself a bunch that year. And then ever since then, it's been like every time I crash, I usually get hurt. There was one time, and I don't crash very much either. That's another thing. But I kind of crashed last year in qualifying at Pittsburgh, and it was actually a confidence booster for me because I walked away from it.
yeah.
Where every other time it's been like, okay, I'm out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's different. Sometimes they'll scare you. Sometimes just like nothing. You're like, oh, I just made a silly mistake. Sometimes you don't know why you
Yeah,
crashed. There's a whole slew of reasons.
yeah, yeah. The worst ones are when you know what happened. That's tough.
Yeah, it's gets in your mind sometimes.
Yeah.
So you said you're at work. What do you do for a living?
I've got a day job as an electrician,
Very
and
nice.
I work for a guy who I know through racing AFM, Stephen Rue.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me take off to go racing and stuff. Big shout out to him.
They support you with time off with that. So it sounds like they
I'm sorry,
support you.
what?
Sounds like they support you with time off so you can go race.
Yeah, as long as he knows when I'm gonna be gone, he's usually okay with it.
That's good.
And so I'm kind of here and there and everywhere during the summer months, and then during the winter I buckle down and work because I got to pay off all that racing anyways.
Sure. And I was just talking to someone about an electrical fire I had years ago on a used bike I bought. I took it out
Hmm.
to the local bike night, and right under my seat, turns out there was a fire going on. And
Oh
so,
man.
that gets hot real quick. It wasn't a huge
Yeah.
issue. We got it put out very quickly, but it could have been really bad. And so, people are always wiring stuff to their bikes, whether it's lights or new HID headlights or whatever it is for the street riders, or if it's a track rider, maybe it's a quick shifter or a map tuning, some kind of module that they're putting in. And so as an electrician, what do you recommend people do?
Oh man, definitely if you're having like a power commander or auto blipper or quick shifter, any of that installed, have it done by professional and not just your buddy or like somebody who you think knows what they're doing. Like have it really professionally installed, because actually a bike that my data engineer from Moto America bought used, she's having to strip the all that stuff out of it, and the wiring harness has just been cut and hacked, and the stuff that's like, what were they thinking? How did they think that was going to work or last? Yeah, wiring is it makes problems that are hard to solve once they start, because they're hard to diagnose. So you want to do it right the first time.
And then you get those electrical gremlins and you don't know what's wrong with it and you can't figure it out.
Yeah, you don't want that.
That's
That
never
makes for a
fun.
bad weekend at the track. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a spare wiring harness on you, do you?
I do. I definitely keep one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you keep for spares? Do you have like a set list of I need 17 clip-ons and 4 rear sets, or like do you just willy-nilly, I got some of these and some of those?
Not exactly. So ideally, like for my Ninja 400 race program, I had an entire spare bike that was broken down into pieces per Moto America rules, because you're not supposed to have a spare bike, say, but you can, as long as it's like broken down to an extent. So I had that, and had literally one of everything in case I needed it, and then had a spare clutch. The stock engine was spare, or the spare engine was stock. I reversed that in my head. And then as far as like bars and clip-ons and stuff, I try to have like at least 2 bars in my spares box. I'd like 2 sets of rear sets. Enough to where I could probably get through 1 or 2 crashes in a weekend if something happened. And then I have a spare set of leather, spare set of boots, spare helmet, stuff like that too.
Yeah, and that's
Where
go ahead.
the SV is new, so we're changing platforms, so we're kind of trying to accumulate all that stuff at the same time.
And it's expensive to get all that stuff at the start. Like when you're trying to buy, imagine someone going to the track for the first time. Well, they need a suit, they need leather, gloves and boots and helmet and back protector and all this stuff. And then
Right.
it's good to have 2 of them, right? Because if you crash, you might need a second one. So the barrier of entry is high, but
and
once
if you're
you get
racing
into
Moto
it,
America and you've gone all the way, oh sorry.
yeah, no, but it's so true. If you're racing Moto America and you're in Alabama now,
Yeah, you've driven all the way across the country. You're in Alabama or New Jersey from California, and it's like, well, we're a long way from home. We got to be able to deal with something while we're here.
yeah, I actually went to Alabama and I blew my transmission at like the 3rd session of a track day. I was like, oh no,
Oh
that
man.
stinks. 12-hour drive by myself, like I guess I'm going home. I didn't have any spare parts at that time. I had just graduated from novice racing to expert, and I was going down there for a mid-March track day or something to get a early season testing and training in. And that's when you find out, I guess I need to have more parts or know how to fix it, or have a spare transmission or engine.
Yeah, a transmission or engine or a track day. It's like, I'm not gonna take a spare engine to a track day. If that blows at a track day, I'm gonna call it a day.
But some people, I see them, oh, let's just throw a new engine in there. It'd take an hour. Well, maybe for you, but it'd take me a week and a half.
Yeah, actually, I pulled the engine out of the SV, the blown up engine, last night, so that we can so that I can take it over to the shop and we can start on the process of the autopsy. Try to figure out what went wrong with it. It's actually in the back of the car here.
Okay, it's not too far away.
Yeah.
Do you have any aspirations of running the Daytona 200 this coming year?
Not this coming year. Well, this coming year if I could. So endurance racing is kind of my niche, and there's not a whole lot of it in California. Unfortunately, most of the endurance racing that's here is on smaller bikes. But that's like, I'm not the most talented. I'm not one of those racers that just has gobs of natural talent. I'm definitely the type that has to work at it. But the gift that I do have is an athlete is endurance. I'm naturally a really good endurance athlete. So to mix that with racing puts me in endurance racing, and I've become one of the top picks for endurance races out here, and haven't done honestly, I haven't done enough to get into the endurance racing that goes on the East Coast, because they do have a whole endurance championship. But the 200 is definitely on my radar because I was made for endurance racing. This is like being on a motorcycle for long stints is what I'm really good at, more than sprint racing on one.
Yeah, it's a battle of attrition, and Daytona 200 is a endurance race, but it's a short endurance race, right? It's only 57 laps, so it's not crazy long. It's maybe two races
Yeah.
plus, 2+ races. So
Yeah.
it's doable.
Yeah, like two. Yeah, it's not like when you think 200 miles, it sounds like a lot, but it's not that long.
Just one pit stop and you're good to
I've
go.
done. Yeah, I've done. I've usually 2-hour stints. I usually do doubles because a normal stint on an endurance bike is an hour. But I did do 3 hours straight at one point.
Ooh.
That I'm pretty proud of.
It's a feat, man. I've never done that. I'd love to. I've done a pit board for an endurance team, but I haven't actually rode the bike in an endurance team yet. But it's definitely on my radar.
Yeah, and I should get a hold of, like, put the feelers out to some of the endurance teams on the East Coast and
Yeah,
try to
there's a
get my
lot of
feet
cool
into
tracks
that.
you could ride for a long time.
Yeah, most definitely.
So you're being out in the West Coast. There's a little bit of time difference. It's about 4 p.m. here, and it's a couple 3 hours difference.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock here. I just took lunch at work.
So
By the time I come back, it'll be almost time to go home.
Nice. Yeah, I'm 6 to 2, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. at my normal job, and then I come home and work on my business, EricSwannRacing.com, every day for at least a couple hours, ship some orders, answer emails, and customer questions, put out fires. It's like whack-a-mole with all the problems, of course, running a business. But
That type of stuff, yeah.
yeah, it's growing though. It's getting better. Just can't stop, can't quit. I keep going.
Good. Glad to hear it.
So I sell all kinds of parts, motorcycle parts, if you're ever looking for stuff. Not everything that I have access to is listed yet, but that's one of my main focuses, is listing all this inventory, because you can't sell it if it's not listed for sale. It's really really hard to do that.
Right.
And so, but we do have right now M4 Performance Exhaust listed, and we're selling the crap out of that stuff. We have Spark Italian exhaust. We have Akrapovic exhaust and Carvin for cars and trucks. So 4 different exhaust brands, and Bonamici for Italian sport bike parts. We're just getting Starlane GPS lap timers, so I'm excited about one of those. I'm going to definitely buy one and put it on I'm planning on buying a 50cc dirt bike, a little pit bike for cart to cart and training, riding in the cart tracks.
Yeah.
So I want to put my super nice GPS lap timer on my 50cc mini bike, mount it up all nice so I can see how fast I'm going. I got to get a MyLapse lap timer again because I sold my transponder and all that, but I still have the mount for the fork.
Okay, well, good. So, does that lap timer do like the GPS and the lean angle and stuff too? Is it a data logger?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones. There's a few different models, but they have lean angle. They have sensors, so potentiometers. If you want to put that on there,
where it's expandable.
I believe so. Yeah. I have never had one in my hands, but they look awesome. And I've seen other people use them. So seems like a good brand. I actually used to be sponsored by XT Racing. They were a lap timer company, but they're out of business now. They don't exist anymore. I was disappointed. I wanted to talk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think they exist anymore because I sent them an email and tried to talk to them and they're just nothing. So,
You know what I wonder about is de-on-device lever guard. It's because there's still a few places on the internet that you can buy them, but they're I wonder if they're just selling off old stock, because those are I really like those. They're the only thing that's really like the lever guard that's like that. Because I had one hook on somebody once. Like most lever guards, they go on the end of the bar, and it's shaped like a hook. And I got that caught on somebody once. So I really like having one that's like mounts from the other direction.
right, yeah. You have to have one that
But
works
they're also
for
really
you.
expensive.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
Uh,
They're CNC
yeah.
machined, and some of them are a little bit of plastic on them. Some of them are just metal or aluminum.
Yeah.
And actually, I sell them. I sell lever guards from Driven Racing. So I'm a Driven Racing dealer. And
Okay.
we're actually working on listing some of that stuff right now, in the background. So yeah, I have a funny story about lever guards. So I've used them both sides in races and had made contact, and no one has ever gone down from any of the contact that's been made. It's all just light taps here and there. But there was one time Carl Soltis actually was going by me. I think you know that name. He's races in the Super Sport 600 class. He's from Michigan, a few miles from me, and he came by me at Grattan at the bus stop, one of the slowest corners, turning left, going counterclockwise, and he came a little too fast and a little too close, and he hit he engaged the clutch lever with his bike, my clutch lever. So we're in the middle of the corner, we're leaned over, and my engine revs go sky high. I'm like, what's going on? That's because another bike was in contact with my clutch lever. And so although he didn't hit my brake or anything, hitting your clutch can be just as bad, because as soon as it released, I didn't have the time to grab the clutch lever before it re-engaged. And so when it did, I had like a big moment, and it definitely took time out of my lap, and I could have crashed from it for sure. But I saved it because I was coming up. I wasn't getting further into the corner. I was exiting already, so it was okay. But it could have been bad.
Good. Yeah, I usually use them on both sides now.
I think it's important.
Not just I think so too. And I use really beefy ones. Like I've had injuries to my hands, so that's why I use the really beefy lever guards and use them on both sides, is to hopefully have just a little bit of added safety.
Sure. And I wish I could get some hand guards on my mountain bike, because I've struck some trees with my fingers before, and that'll hurt for a month.
Yeah, even small ones. It's surprising how much, like, just a little bush, like you whip past it and it hurts.
Oh yeah. It wasn't a little one. I hit a tree, and I did the whole yard sale.
Well, yeah, I don't know if hand guards will help with that. But
I think it would have helped, because I would have hit the hand guard instead of my hand. I don't know. But I don't think there's a product that exists in the market yet for that.
Yeah, I feel like there's some improvement to be made there.
So, is there anything on your mind you want to talk about today? I don't know what your time limit was, since you're at work or on break.
Oh, I'm fine. I got plenty of time.
Okay.
What that's a good question. What do I want to talk about? I'm my own team manager. So as far as logistics and putting a bike together and putting it on the track, it's one of those cases where I'm the rider. I'm also the one who's managing the team. So a lot goes into that. So it's kind of like, where do I start?
So are you a team of one? Do you have a crew? Is it just you?
I've got a set of hands, and I've got a data engineer now. So Chloe Loren is doing my data. She built a wiring harness for the bike to run a full data acquisition system, an AIM dash, Michael Welch is really kind of the team owner. He's one of the primary sponsors. He's Wicked Flower. He's also there at the track, and he's the one who's carrying my stands and
The
running around helping me
generator.
out at the track. And that kind of stuff. I appreciate the hell out of him. So I definitely have been a team of one at times, and I'm stoked to have at least a couple of good people in my corner.
So tell me about how much more helpful is it to have at least one or two people there rather than doing it on your own? Is it like 10 times better? Like, it's hard to put a number on it maybe, but
Yeah, so you've got to have at least one person, because like at the Moto America races, you've got the grid ceremony. So you've got to have somebody that brings your stands, your warmers, and your generators to grid. And like 2018, no, 2019 is when the first year I was riding Junior Cup. I was all by myself, and I've traveled the series for years now. I started racing with Moto America in 2015. So I know people kind of everywhere. So I would just get one or two people that were local to the area to help me each time. And it would be somebody different each weekend. So all the heavy lifting, like all the bike maintenance and stuff, I still had to do myself, but I at least had somebody to like physically help me at the track, like extra sets of hands. But that makes all the difference. Like you can't do it by yourself.
yeah, and you need
It
an umbrella girl. You need, somebody to help you
Yeah,
out. The tire warmers, going out for sessions and helping you just get off the bike and put this bike on the stands while you can get some water is
yeah.
helpful.
The more you know, the slower you go. So the more stress that you can have other people take off of you, the better. Which is why it's not really ever ideal for a rider to be a team manager, like in the case of like Kyle Wyman or Ozzy Dave or um, any other teams that they're quite successful. Um, it's always better if the rider can show up and only have to ride the motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, there's both sides to it because I would rather be the team owner, manager, and that guy, like a Kyle Wyman type figure. Because if you're just the rider, like if you're on factory Yamaha that doesn't really exist anymore, if you're just the rider, you can get kicked off the team and they don't care about you. You're just another rider. And so if you have your own team, no one can kick you off of it.
That's true. Well, I don't know, unless you fire yourself.
It's possible, but it's much
You'd have
less
to do really
likely.
bad at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah, it's much
So
less likely.
it's much more of like a comprehensive program, whereas like in the past, some of the Yamaha guys were just getting a really great ride and not having to do anything. And like, that's a great scenario too. I'm not going to
Yeah.
discount that at all, but which one would you rather have? Would you rather own the team and race and delegate a lot of stuff as you can if you have more funding for it?
I will definitely delegate as much as I possibly have, or as much as I possibly can, given the funding and the situation. It does get stressful to put together a whole program, and it is having that in the back of your mind is not really it's not an advantage, definitely. So
Yeah.
I would definitely prefer to be on a team, and I have in the past. And it is a different dynamic. So one of the things is, if you're going to be on a team, you definitely want to be the A rider. You don't want to be like the person who gets you don't want to be second priority. That's not a good situation. Like, I would rather be the manager of my own program than be the B rider on a team.
Is it that much difference, you think, in
But
attention?
I would rather. It depends on the team, but usually, yeah.
The A rider gets all the
But
new
you brought up
parts.
kind of an interesting. Yeah. They get all the new parts, and the crew members they want to help that person more than they want to help you if you're the B rider, because they're the one that's, finishing higher, and they're like, they have more hope for that person to win.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense, I guess. Seems unfair though.
So what do you think about there not being any true factory teams in Moto America anymore?
Well,
Or can you say that because is the Ducati team that's coming in that's a factory effort, isn't it?
I'd have to talk to him. Maybe I have to talk to, is it Boz is coming over? Is he riding?
Yeah. Yeah, if you can get him to talk, that'd be awesome.
For sure. So I'm not sure if they're in it, if the factory are actually supporting the riders, or if it's just they're using a Ducati bike and whoever's paying for it. I'm not sure. I would love to see more manufacturer involvement, obviously, because it helps the riders, it helps the series.
Yeah.
And I think if the manufacturers really want to win, it would benefit them to support the series. It would help the riders to have
Yeah.
better training or better parts or better hospitality, whatever it is, better food. There's a lot of things that money can buy to help make you go faster that don't relate to the bike, right? So it could be crew or whatnot. Um, but it seems like they don't need to because we're still buying their bikes. That's their argument. Why do we need to support you? You're still using our machines.
Yeah, so it it sucks to be a privateer and have to race against like the Graves and Yoshimuras and
All the guys with semis.
the factory teams. Yeah, but it's hard to argue that having them pull out of the sport is good for the sport. Taking money away from the sport is definitely not good. But I'd like to see factory support, but I think I'd like to see it be more spread out. Like maybe have a really good contingency program for all the riders, or something to that effect, where they're not just putting all their support and all their money into a couple guys to race and just beat everybody. I'd
Right.
like to see, like Kawasaki step up their support level of the Junior Cup or something, or have a really good contingency program so that the riders that are running their bikes in Superbike can, maybe make the sport make sense, because it's hard to make sense when you're not making dollars.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm not racing right now, is I couldn't afford it, and I was ready to go pro. My first ever novice season, I was fast enough to qualify for pro racing. I just didn't have enough points and all that stuff, and wanted to stay
Right,
an
right.
amateur for a while to learn, and all that. I went up to expert, did that for a while, just ran out of money, and I had 20 sponsors. They
Yeah.
weren't all cash sponsors because no one's gonna give a Wera racer 50 grand. There's no TV coverage, there's zero coverage.
Yeah, and even when there is, man, it's a tough sell. Um, Even so, and Moto America is really good. They give you all of the numbers on like viewership and what demographics you're reaching. They give you all those tools to use as data to support, data to hand out to potential sponsors, and that's really really good. And the viewership actually this last year has been fantastic. I mean, the TV ratings have never been higher than they were with COVID,
Everybody's
but
inside, right?
it's still a tough sell. It's it's not like it was. So, and I think kind of what the difference is now than the way it used to be in the 80s and maybe the 90s and early 2000s, there's so many things for people to be interested and involved in. It's really hard to nail enough people down to one kind of niche thing that's to get enough interest and enough support to justify the marketing. And I don't know what that means for our sport or any sport, because really all sports and not just motorsports are declining right now. So the game has to change in some way, but I don't have the answer to that. I think Moto America is working with some difficult issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as far as niches go and all that. I think that it's it doesn't have to be a major one. It doesn't have to be as big as football, but it can still be a viable industry, you know. And so
Yeah.
um, it's just what is the saying? 1 in a million is still over 7,000 people. So if you think about in those terms, you know, there's tons of people who are into it, and I think it's growing because there's more people being
Yeah.
born and more people being exposed to it, and people do definitely bounce around more, and their attention is scattered. But I mean, you might have a couple million true fans who are going to watch every single race, but then you're going to have tons and tons of, you know, half-ass fans who watch some races. Then you're going to have the occasional watcher, which is even more people, you know, because it's just they'll do it sometimes. They'll watch a race sometimes. You know, I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who
And
are
that's okay.
interested in it. They just aren't exposed to it on a consistent enough basis. Like if a baseball game is on every other day, or if you're watching baseball, it's on every day in season, and but a race is on every week, maybe, right? So it's much more
Yeah.
spaced out, so you don't see it as often. What if there was a more
Yeah.
often race that was cheaper? Like you can't necessarily go racing 3 times a week like a baseball game because it's so expensive. So how could you have
Mhm.
more races more often but spending way less money? What if you televise like a national kart, um, like an O Valley championship at kart tracks? What if you televise that? You could have races 3 times a week
Yeah. Well,
and had
you'd
maybe
be
a coast to coast.
surprised. Yeah, you'd be surprised how high the budgets for those ovales are, though. I mean, it's supposed to be budget racing, just like Junior Cup is supposed to be budget racing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know anybody who'd be able to afford to do I mean, unless you split it up. So here's one potential for that to work. And I think you are onto something with just having it more often. But what if they took each class and split it up where you're doing one race one week and another week and another week and another week instead of having this huge grand event? Well, the only problem I see with that is, you have to rent the track
And
also.
travel,
So
yeah.
then having to rent the track for, 2 weeks as opposed to one weekend would be a pretty big expense.
Yeah, it's all about
But
logistics and
yeah,
finances.
yeah. And there's no good answer. A lot of people think they have the answers to all the problems, but I really do think Moto America is doing everything they can. And I think the problems that they are dealing with and trying to get our sport to grow are big ones. I think they are big problems.
Yeah, they're like fundamental
So let me
issues.
ask you this. You asked about the Daytona 200 specifically. What made you ask about that?
Well, it just kind of happened, so I was just wondering what your thoughts on that was.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you. I mean that we did just have the Daytona 200, so maybe that. But
It's a current
I
event.
was wondering if you had a specific reason to ask. It just popped into my head. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's a current event.
Um, and what about some training? What do you do for training? Do you do a lot of riding, like cycling or running or weights or kind of everything?
I do. I do a lot of training on mini flat track bikes, so like a TTR 125. I ride at there's a few tracks locally that I can go to, and then I go out to the Feel Like a Pro Ranch a lot too. I usually, so I've got a series of yoga poses and calisthenic exercises I do every night, and I run between 2 and 4 miles every night usually. And I also cycle a lot, so I do a lot to keep my endurance up. I train, so I train for the bike I'm riding also, where like on the 400 or the 390 before that, you don't need a lot of body strength. You don't need upper body, you don't need that much muscles. So I could at 6'2", I could get down to 155 pounds and be like really skinny and not have a lot of muscle. When I rode a 600 for a couple of years, I found that mainly in my upper body and a little bit of my core as well, I needed a little more on that bike. So I was I'd stay at about 165, and like, to put it in perspective, I'd be able to bench press about 185 at that weight, but still doing a lot of endurance training. And for me, it's got to be like really light endurance. Like, I can't be running hills. I've got to be spinning on the bike, because my legs will, like, I'll build muscle in my legs really easily and I'll gain weight. So I try to avoid that, but still keep my endurance and my strength where it needs to be. So like riding the SV now, like my body is tuned, if you will, for the 400 still. Kind of skinny fat right now, I'm not gonna lie. I'm about 160 pounds, but there's enough braking on the SV 650 that I was really kind of feeling it in my upper arms and pecs. So I will, I'll work on that specific muscle group and nothing else, and just it's pretty. So I guess I would say my training it's pretty dialed into what specifically I feel like I need on the bike. Because like I said, I will gain weight, so I try to work on only the muscle groups that I feel like I need to, and nothing else,
That makes
to
sense.
stay at that happy medium of power to weight ratio.
Right. And you mentioned the differences a little bit between the 400, the KTM 390, and the SV 650. Now, which one is a harder bike to ride? I mean, one of them is more nimble than the other one, but the other one is just different, right?
The 390 was definitely the hardest to ride fast. It's just to me, and the feedback you'll get from a lot of the riders who were on those, who were in that class, it's just a really awkward bike to ride. The One of the things that I struggled most with on it was just trying to get the rear suspension to work, because it doesn't have a rear suspension linkage, and that, like, never really found an answer to get the bike to work well with that setup, or at least not with the spec WP suspension that we were running on that bike. I know that when they opened up Junior Cup, and you were, the first couple of years when they're running factory KTMs, and that they were running pretty good. So they figured something out, but those were not the same spec KTMs that we had ran before.
And it was a stock class, so they had to have the same springs and everything, or you had only a few that you could choose from.
You could change spring rate and you could change valve stack, but it had to be within a range that you could only buy the springs and from WP and the shims and all that kind of stuff. So it was within a range.
Okay.
and that made it tough too, as far as just getting that bike to work. So it was just really awkward, and the things that pull, like, riding that bike fast doesn't necessarily translate to riding another bike fast.
It's different.
Yeah, it's kind of a weirdo bike, that 390.
But I mean, you learn something from every bike. You take something from it and try to apply it to the next one as much as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, like, I'm a huge KTM fan. Like, I raced KTMs before that. KTM sponsored me for a long time. I worked for KTMtwins.com, the online store, for years. I bleed orange. I love KTM. But the 390 was it was a problem child.
And I think you had a Kawasaki for a while. Is that right?
I certainly had a Ninja 400. Yeah. In fact, I still have my Ninja 400, and I'm racing a twin now, so it needs a new home. So if anybody out there needs a race-ready Ninja 400,
what year?
I've got one. No expense spared build. It's a great bike. The chassis it's on currently is an 18, but the spare bike, the spare frame, is, I think, 20. So that should be, you should be able to register that for contingency.
Because it's within 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's a nice feature that at least some of the manufacturers put up decent amount of contingency if you finish well and you run their bike and it's less than 2 years old.
Yeah, and Kawasaki's definitely been one of the best for that, with, you know, they're like the 1000s on down to the 400s. Suzuki definitely needs to step up their game. They're not offering any contingency for the SV, unfortunately.
None at all.
Yeah, none that I know of. I don't think there's any in Moto America. There's certainly none at the club level. So yeah, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me, but I don't think there's any even at the Moto America level.
And what's a race ready, nothing spared bike go for nowadays?
For the bike by itself, I'd like to. I'd be asking 12,000 for it. For the bike with the spares package, which again is essentially a whole other bike, as well as gearing, springs, like everything you need to run the bike, basically. I'd like to get 15,000 for it, which seems reasonable. And anybody who would be building a Ninja 400 would see the value in that. But again, it's a niche market. It really needs to be somebody who's looking to race Moto America, who would, in their head, justify that kind of crazy amount of money for a Ninja 400.
Well, I mean,
crazy when you consider that a stock brand new one is 5,000 or 6,000.
Sure, but I mean, even a new kid starting out would have everything he needs. A rich dad who's looking to get his son everything, the spares and all. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and it's always easier to, because I mean, if you were to buy everything, you'd be like, buy everything at retail cost.
Way more.
I mean,
Way more.
you'd be in at like 25 grand probably. So it's always easier if you can buy a race bike ready to go, because you don't get the value back out of it. It's you know, you get the going rate of whatever someone's willing to pay for it at the time, but to actually build that motorcycle costs a lot more. So that's a bit of advice that I've always shared with new racers, is that if you can like buy, and you probably don't want to buy somebody's like clapped out AFM or Wera bike. That's kind of a different story. But if you can buy like an X Pro bike, like something that's been maintained, as you know, most pro bikes are, you come out on top every time. rather than trying to build one yourself. And that's a mistake a lot of people make in the beginning and realize later on, is they buy a bike and you're putting parts on it and putting parts on it and putting parts on it, and it adds up big time. And then you're frustrated as well because you're like, well, I need a better shock, but I can't afford that right now because I spent all my money on this bike. And yeah, that kind of thing. So if you can, always buy a bike that's purpose built.
Yeah, and actually, to echo what you just said, I have never actually bought a stock bike and made it a race bike. I've never really built a bike like that. I've always bought a bike that was already ready for the track. Except for my first street bike that I kind of turned into a track bike, but I didn't put really any bells and whistles on it. All I did was brake lines and bodywork and some safety wire. I think that's all I did. So I wouldn't call that building a bike, but and obviously
Right.
I've rebuilt the bikes that I've had after you need to, do everything, take all the parts off, clean everything and service things. But I would always recommend for buying race built as well, because it's way cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. The bang for your buck factor is way higher if you can find a used, well-maintained race bike.
Yeah. And if you can find a pro team, that's even better, because then it's got their stamp on it basically, and sometimes it could have race wins on it already.
Yeah,
which is a cool feature, right?
yeah, like my R6 that I got from Road Race Factory, which is a team that unfortunately is no longer in the pro paddock.
They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, and it sucks because they're actually one of the first people that I met in road racing. So before I even started actually road racing, I used to work at the races at Laguna Seca. So of course a few years ago they had World Superbike, and then they'd also have MotoGP. So you'd have two world level events a year at the track. And I met the guys from Road Race Factory back before I even started racing, before I even really saw myself going down this path, this descent into madness.
And were you a corner worker, or were you selling elephant ears?
I was a corner worker.
Okay.
I was a response captain. I've worked on a bunch of different parts of the track. And my bit of advice with that is, if you want to attend a race, definitely sign up to be a corner worker, because you've got the best seat in the house. They feed you, they pay you, you camp for free. It is an awesome deal. So if you want to work the Moto America World Superbike races, the company that staffs it is USARM, USARM.org, and you can sign up through them. So, I mean, as opposed to, it's expensive for tickets for the World Superbike races.
A couple $100
it's
probably
like
for a weekend.
$70 for Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a couple $100. Versus, like, as opposed to that, they pay you a couple $100 and you get in for free and your meals are free. Like, that's a way better deal.
Yeah, and you might get to push some cars.
You're on the track. Yeah, you get to see it all up close. So yeah, the only drawback is you got to be up early and you're out there for a long time. But I don't think there's any better way to enjoy the races. You can also do that at AFM and probably at Wera races. I'm sure Wera does it as well. They have volunteers.
Oh yeah, I've actually never been a corner worker. It's something that I've actually wanted to do because it seems fun. You might be helping people out just like me, your friends, and it's just seeing the other side of it, because I've watched and seen the corner workers. I've seen them do it 100 times. I could do that. I know what they do by now. It'd probably be good to have some sort of class.
It is fun too, and I almost think that, and it's good for a racer to see that side of it, to see how they operate. I almost think that it should be a requirement for getting your race license that you should have to work one weekend as a corner worker, response truck, or something. to understand the safety aspect of it. And then it's also helpful to like learn their signals. Like if you need to call an ambulance to yourself, knowing that hand signal can be helpful.
Yeah. Or if you're okay, give them a thumbs up.
Yeah, and that's if you are hurt, or if you are hurt, stay down. That's the universal language for I'm hurt. But if you're not hurt, definitely get up, because you don't want them to red flag and stop the race if it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. For sure. Have you been involved in any airlifts or anything like that?
Fortunately not. I have only one time had an ambulance ride, and it was a long ambulance ride. I don't know why they didn't airlift me, honestly, because I crashed at Chuckwalla and messed up my hand pretty bad, but they and it was a whole ordeal, actually, because the ambulance people weren't paying attention. And like, it was the first lap of the main event of the weekend race, and they weren't paying attention to the radio or anything. So I was laying there and I was like, what is going on? The crash truck got there before the ambulance did.
Oh man.
And I look across the track and the ambulance is over there, and they've got their hood up, and they were like checking the oil on the ambulance and stuff. And like, I was bleeding a lot, and I was like, oh my God, this is my luck right now. Like, the ambulance is broken down and I'm bleeding out on the side of the track.
So how'd you
And
cut your hand? Normally, like I've had all these crashes and not a single cut or abrasion. But it sounds like you're bleeding pretty good.
well, I mentioned hand guards and Dion device hand guards. Like, that's the crash.
Ooh.
That's why yeah, it wasn't good. But so the ambulance, they did finally get the ambulance's attention. They came over, and it was like it was over an hour drive. I want to say it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and they switched ambulances halfway even.
Oh wow.
So like, they drove me halfway, and then I got out and like stood up and got onto another gurney and got in another ambulance and drove the rest of the way to the hospital.
Little tag team effort.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I guess probably they didn't airlift you because it's not critical. Like you're not going to die from a finger, but it really hurts. You still need attention.
Once the bleeding stopped, like, yeah, maybe that's why. But like, I've seen them airlift people for less.
Or maybe they didn't have. I don't know. I think some
also,
organizations have to have
get airlift insurance if you haven't. If you ride at track days or you race, airlift insurance, I think it's only like $60 or something for the year. And like, that saves you from, like, God forbid, if something does happen that's bad enough for them to airlift you. I mean, most insurance doesn't really cover that. You could be stuck with like a $50,000 bill for that flight.
Wild that it costs that much.
It's really expensive, that life flight. And of course, whatever has to happen to help you at that point is going to happen. But yeah, the insurance for that is so cheap. Like, you're losing money if it doesn't make sense not to get it.
Yeah,
and it covers your whole family too. Like, if you, yeah.
I got to look into that. I have a friend actually who was airlifted at a track, Road Atlanta, and he ended up being okay, but it was a suspected, brain bleed or something in the head, and he had hit the barrier. In the S's in Road Atlanta, in the first couple of turns, there's not a lot of runoff there.
Yeah.
He crashed over in one of those S's there, coming down the hill. After the really tight, chicane there, and it scared us all because they wouldn't release his bike, and anytime they don't release the bike, that's not a good thing.
Hmm.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Road Atlanta because that's the first round of Moto America. But I am, but I'm not. I've got a lot of work ahead of me before that, and also like I'm kind of cursed at Road Atlanta. I feel like I've never gone there and had a good race weekend. It's always been like really kind of crappy, and it's usually the case where like I ride well at Road Atlanta, so it's not that like it's usually the case where like I'm riding well and actually going really fast, but then end up having mechanical issues or something, or like crash and get hurt or something, you know. So I'm hoping to break that this time around.
It's a fun track, you know, it's fast and flowing. It doesn't seem super
Yeah,
difficult. There's a couple of sections you got to get right, but it's not like there aren't so many S's that if you screw up one turn, you screw up the next 5 turns. It's not like that.
right, right.
Um, and
Yeah, you
so,
kind of just gotta you gotta carry corner speed in a couple places, and you gotta nail your corner exits in a couple places too.
and there's quite a bit of elevation there. That's a big thing for people going there for the first time, coming down that last corner, or even the gravity cavity area.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, because a lot of people from the East Coast, it seems like, aren't really used to elevation change. Because
yeah.
like I think some of the tracks out there that people ride more commonly, like Tally and Roebling, maybe, they're really really flat. So a lot of
Um,
people that come out here from the East Coast to ride like our tracks in California are like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
we do have a track in Grattan, my home track, Grattan Raceway, and that's a great one. That was the first track I ever did. They do it clockwise and counterclockwise, but it's very blind both directions, so you really have to be on point. Um, and tons of elevation. S's that if you screw up one corner, you're going to screw up the next few. They always told us if you can
Okay.
ride fast at Grattan, you can ride anywhere. And I thought every track was going to be like Grattan. And then they go to Gingerman, another one in our state, Michigan, and that
I've
one's
never heard of Gingerman. I've never
Gingerman.
been to Grattan. I've heard of Grattan, but I've never been to Gingerman,
Gingerman
or never
wasn't
heard of Gingerman.
Gingerman wasn't on the calendar for motorcycle events for a long time. We just did track days there, but now it's on the CCS schedule, I believe. I don't think Ware goes there. Um, I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm not sure why they don't. There doesn't seem like there's any more dangerous corners than any other track. Um, but that's a fairly flat track, so you just get the differences when you go to different tracks, and you get different features. I like trying to go to different tracks, get all the different features, and
Yeah,
Coda seems like one of the best tracks in the country that I could think of. It's got everything there. It's got elevation. It's got crazy turns. It's got a quadruple apex right. That's like the Turkey turn, and in Istanbul at that track. Um, so it grabs from a lot of different features of other tracks too.
yeah, it seems like a really cool track. Unfortunately, I've never gotten to ride it because, even when we do have the Moto America races there, it's only Superbike. I might try to do a track day there this year,
Do they allow you to
just
test
to
there?
you. So only the code. So, and the Moto America rules have changed on that, where I believe now you can test at a track as long as it's not within 15 days of an event.
Okay. So they reduced the
Yeah,
rules.
you should. Yeah, because it used to be at first it was once the season has started, you can't test at any of the tracks. And then it was a 30-day rule, and I think last year it was a 15-day rule, because we went to when we rode at the Ridge, there was a Wormra, an Wormra joint event that was like 2 weeks before that most of the Moto America racers were at, so that they could get track time and experience the track, because it was new to the Moto America schedule. Speaking of which, Brainerd is new to the Moto America schedule this year, and I'm excited about that. That's one that's probably from your neck of the woods.
Yeah, that's closer towards me. I've never rode that one. Seems like it's a historic older track that they're trying to bring back,
Yeah.
and going to be first time on. I mean, motorcycles have been on it before, but first time in a long time that they're going to have professional racing at that track. It's been probably what, 20, 30 years maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's probably been like 10 years at least. And I think they stopped racing there due to safety concerns. So hopefully they've gotten some of that sorted out.
As long as you got enough airbags, you're good to go.
There you go.
Those air fences, those help out.
Actually, no, I take that back. I have hit an air fence, but I didn't hit it hard. I did hit one at Laguna once, but I have heard that they are not very friendly to hit. I mean, probably better than a wall.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's still not fun.
No, it's not like you're going to the trampoline fun park, but at least you're not going to end up in the hospital, hopefully. Because most people walk away.
Hopefully.
I've seen people
end up. Yeah, I've seen people end up underneath them though.
Yeah, that can be a problem if it's not secured properly. I guess you can go right underneath, and then you hit the wall underneath the air fence.
Yeah, and then you're stuck under the air fence. I've seen that one a couple of times. But the corner workers are usually pretty good about that. They see it and they see what happened. They pick it up and they get the rider out of there pretty quickly.
My goal or my wish would be there just to not be a wall there. That'd be great.
Right, that would be best.
But it seems like track organizers don't really care at this point. Some of them are trying and they're getting better for sure, but there's still a lot. Like I think about, I don't know if you ever were able to race Mid-Ohio before they canceled that one. But Mid-Ohio.
Oh, Mid-Ohio's canceled now?
Yeah, I mean, they still do it for club racing, but not for professional because of the surface.
That's what I thought.
The surface needs to be repaved. Anytime it gets a little bit damp or wet, it's completely unsafe to race.
Sonoma's the same way, and they don't even race. They're not even club racing at Sonoma anymore because of how bad the surface has gotten, as far as bumps and grip. And yeah, like Sonoma, I've been told like if the track is wet, you can't even drive a car around.
Oh wow! But I mean, there's a corner at Mid-Ohio right before you come onto the main straightaway. You know how you have that carousel, but that left-hander, and then you got the right-hander right before that. You could brush your helmet on the guardrail there. Like everybody tries to get right next to the railing. It's like, why is there a guardrail here? You couldn't like push the fans 50 feet back and put the wall there. Like, I don't understand that stuff. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, when there's room for it to be somewhere else, like, could it please be somewhere else?
Like, that could save someone's life. I mean, you're probably not going to hit that wall. I get it. But I'd rather have it not next to the racing surface.
Yeah.
But
yeah, on the inside is one thing. As long as there's nothing on the outside of the track.
Yeah, not in a crash zone, but things happen. Like you see crazy stuff happen all the time where you lose control and you went to the inside or you went,
yeah, that's true.
Or maybe like Marco Simoncelli tried to save the crash, or Mark Marquez tried to save the crash and went too far. That's possible.
That's possible, yeah. Yeah, it's not common, but it is possible.
So, I guess we can kind of wrap things up here. It's already over an hour, would you believe?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe it.
And
time flies, I guess.
So where can people find you online? Are you out there anywhere?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is John for real _ before and after it. My Facebook is John Knowles number 520, like hashtag 520. And that's primarily the Facebook account, and that's where I post my blog and stuff. And that's been kind of my niche online. Is people, a lot of people do videos, a lot of people do race reports and stuff like that. But people seem to like my blogs and race reports, so I keep writing them.
Yeah, and are you a YouTuber? Do you have any videos out there at all?
Not really, but I'm getting into that. I now have some cameras and I've got some ideas, so you can look out for that soon. But not so much yet. I don't have much of that yet.
Very good. And any sponsor shout outs you want to give?
Definitely Riders Law Racing, Wicked Flower. They've been great helping me get on the bike. Lean Focus Group has stepped up and they're going to help out a lot this year. PTH Racing Oil, Galfer, Motion Pro, Vortex, HydroTurf. Shinesty, the underwear has stepped up as well. That's
Okay.
going to be fun. You can
Are they boxer
watch
briefs?
my Instagram.
Tidy
They
whities?
are. They're boxer briefs. They are the most. So I hit them up because they are. My girlfriend got me a set of them as like kind of a gag gift, and I won't go into that. But I was like, damn, if these aren't the most comfortable undies I've ever worn. So I started talking with them, and they're actually. I have an underwear sponsor. That's awesome. Yeah.
So you should be staying clean for 2021.
Yes, staying clean. Also, Honda, Kawasaki, KTM, and Modesto, they've supported me since the beginning. Spears Racing. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody. Friends and family. Everybody who helps me out.
And then, so you're looking to do the
Kyle
full
Racing.
You're looking to
Put
do
my
the
suspension
full
together.
the full 2021 Moto America season. Are you a season entry already?
Yep, I'm a season entry in Twins. Planning on riding the SV. The question on everybody's mind is, of course, that new Aprilia that's coming out. And actually, I did order one. It is they told me it's in. I should probably make an appointment to like maybe go get that thing. I think I'll be on the SV for most of, if not all, this year though.
Okay.
So
And then you're gonna transition to the Aprilia.
Yeah, as it becomes more viable. Because I mean, I think it'll be a great bike once it's had a year of development, but I don't think it's going to be the killer that people think it's going to be right off the bat.
Okay. Very good. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on you, and I'm gonna get this edited and posted in about a week or so. So make sure you tag everybody we talked about and share it as well, so we can get as many people on it as possible.
I will. I absolutely will. And thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I really appreciate that. Thanks for thinking of me.
You're welcome, man. I'm glad you humored me by coming on. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.